fun. So you thought it would be, maybe. Vindication, valid. It's awful because people like Liz in Cricklade are going to be at the sharp end of it, and they've seen what's on the horizon for a long time, even as politicians insisted otherwise. I hope that's a fair description of your situation, Liz.
Morning, James.
Hello.
Yeah, it is. I was just sitting here thinking I'm going to rival you for being right because actually everything I said that was going to happen has happened. And it's galling to be right because I would have preferred to be wrong. I know Graham, actually. We've worked together a bit over the years because I run Save British Food. And I guess that's the reality, isn't it? Everything I said that would happen has happened.
Hang on, I'm just going to pause you there because there is a chance, of course, that we're both wrong. Steve's been in touch to say you are a fool. Australian people work in bars. They love the UK. Otherwise, they wouldn't come. So Steve has a helpful counterbalance to the big breakfast television show laughing at us uproariously yesterday. Back to your experiences. Thank you, Steve. Thanks, great. Mate. Thanks, Steve.
So yes, for some people like Steve, he probably won't care about where his steak comes from and how it's reared, and how many miles it's taken to get here, and how much cruelty it's gone through, and how many chemicals are in it. But ultimately, this was inevitable. And when the NFU actually caved in, it was the moment that this was inevitable over the standards in the Agriculture Act, and that's when not just us British farmers, but you British consumers were sold out because you're going to be eating this stuff, and our lovely, gorgeous British animals are going to be rarer than they are now, and it's an absolute travesty for British health and our countryside. It's a disaster. I'm furious about it. I mean, I actually had a sneak preview of this yesterday. I cried about it yesterday, and now my anger is up because the deceit around this is sickening. And you know, if they told everybody at the outset Brexit's going to mean that you're going to be eating this stuff, everybody would have voted for British food. I mean, there's nothing more nationalistic than your food.
I think Rees Mogg
to be nationalistic about your food because the closer that your food comes from to you, the better the stuff tastes, the better it is for you, the better it is for the environment, and it's also better for food security because, you know, tensions in the world are very high.
As we've seen in Ukraine, we saw in COVID, the more you produce of your own food, the better. But you know what the Tufton Street mantra is, which is, you know, the cheaper the better. The fewer regulations there are, the fewer standards there are, the more money you can make. Is there even and I know this will be anathema to you, but for some people listening to this, the idea of knocking a quid off their ready meal lasagna or buying a steak that might have some unfortunate hormones in it, but unless I start growing breasts, I'm not going to worry about that. They're just going to be looking at the cost. And are they likely to have what they dream of? Just cheaper meat, albeit less good?
Well, it won't stay cheaper. It'll be cheaper until we're out of business. That's how it works.
And then it'll be the only meat we can buy, so they can set whatever price they want for it.
Yeah, I mean, there will be premium British meat available, the same as you can get premium fur.
Down the farmer's market.
Yeah, well, it'll be higher than that, won't it? Because it'll only be the wealthiest farmers that will be able to afford to produce this, you know, really good beef. So it completely and utterly...
Is it an existential threat? Because, you know as well as I do that there is precious little chance of rejoining anytime soon. And until this deal is almost undone, or is undone, the import of the meat you're describing, the more comes in, the greater the existential threat to British beef farmers, as I understand it.
And I keep trying to explain this to Remainers on Twitter.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of time. If
That's
we're
what I
going
mean.
to undo this,
yes.
We don't have much time. George Eustace, we should be grateful to.
Well, let's not.
No, there is something. Let me give you a proviso here.
Okay.
He did ensure there's a 6-month exit clause. He also ensured that the quotas were actually better in the first 5 years.
Okay, fair enough.
So we have got not a lot of time to sort this out. The worry to me is that as we go into the winter of hell, which we are going into, and food shortages intensify, that there will be an excuse for them to turn around and say, oh, we've got food shortages, so bugger the quotas, let it all in. And that is the danger. And it's why Labour need to move faster on this, because the nationalism on food is very powerful, and it's also around food security as national security. They need to get off the fence and they need to start fighting. You've got all the evidence now that Britain was deceived, so let's make hay about this.
It's a remarkable piece. I listen, thank you for all you do in this field. I know you're very, very active, as you say, in social media and beyond, and thank you for helping us come to a better understanding of what's at stake. I do, however, just want to refresh my memory of that conversation with Minette Batters that we had in 2021, because I've got a feeling it might be quite pertinent listening. Liz, thank you. It's 11:57.
So there's a whole raft of things, James, on standards that need to be maintained in future trade deals.
And that but possibly I oversimplify things, and you appreciate the complexities and complications of the issues, but there is this reported rift between George Eustice and Michael Gove on one side and Liz Truss and apparently the Prime Minister on the other side that does, for good or for ill, boil down to a zero tariff deal. If a zero tariff deal with Australia is announced, whatever the timescale for its introduction might be, I read a piece in the Telegraph yesterday from somebody sort of suggesting that that's just tough luck on farmers who will go bankrupt.
Well, you could take that attitude. My job is to represent farmers and make sure that their case is heard by government. And, it's not just about George Eustice in all of this. The Prime Minister has made cast iron.
We keep coming back to this, and I am going to, I'm afraid, remind you that he made cast iron guarantees to the people of Northern Ireland and business people in Northern Ireland about the likelihood of there being any border put in the Irish Sea. So where are you deriving your confidence that he'll keep his promises to you?
Well, he is the Prime Minister, and my job is to hold him to account.
He was Prime Minister when he promised there'd be no checks on trade with Northern Ireland from the Great Britain mainland.
He was, but this is where the power of the people is so important. The people have put him into that place. They've got a massive majority government. The people of this country drew a line in the sand last year when over 1 million people in 2 weeks signed up to this and said they wanted trade to be fair. They wanted food imports to be produced to the same standards. I don't believe they will ever forgive him if he reneges on that commitment. And we see a mass departure of farmers in our countryside. So he has to keep to his word. I certainly intend to keep banging the drum and making sure that he does. Now, of course, that is his decision.
Yes.
But we really do need to make sure that this is done right. And I think after COVID, so many people have enjoyed walking in the countryside. So many people have only been able to cook. They've been buying out of retail. They haven't been able to go to the hotels and pubs and restaurants like we normally do. And they value their food, and they want to make sure that farmers in this country can possibly even produce more food so that we're not reliant on other countries on shipping food right the way across the world while we put our own farmers out of business. That would be a dereliction of duty by any Prime Minister, and I hope this one will stick to his commitment. But I share your concerns of the past. And
in conclusion, then, you are, in many ways, the future of British farming depends upon Boris Johnson's ability to keep his word. It
certainly does. It certainly does. And don't forget when he signs up to this paves the way for decades to come, because when we're working under WTO rules, you can't change it. So it's vital he gets this right.
God, that's horrible, actually. It was worse than I remembered. It wasn't an involuntary groan. It was an uh-oh at the end there. We need to catch up with Minette, don't we, at some point? But I imagine she's got rather bigger fish to fry at the moment. I'm going to return next to